That's how we get on. That's how we get on social media.
Now I know.
That's always how we get kicked off. Come on. I know that's false. You're lying to me. Or there we go. All right, let's start recording. All right, everybody. I think we got everything in. I think we're all turbines to speed. And it's Wednesday, and the weather says it's Ardbeg Day.
Yay.
All right, everybody's settling in now. Lisa Poe, National Brand Ambassador for Ardbeg and Glenmo, is up here today. And we're glad to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
We really are, because we love having you here. And I think we got an amazing lineup today.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
John is already pulling the curtains back. We got a full house.
Wow.
we got extra, and he already set them up, so they're already pretty good. All right, so there's some exciting news with Ardbeg.
Yes.
That I just saw this week.
Yes.
I don't know if everybody knows. So
yes.
You want to give them the good news?
Absolutely. So Ardbeg just appointed their new distillery manager. Super excited about it. Her name is Baroni, and I may be pronouncing her name incorrectly. Baroni McNivens, and she is an absolute natural fit for Ardbeg. She actually grew up around Ardbeg. Her father was a stillman for about 35 years,
Really?
I believe, and he retired. So she's been around Ardbeg her whole entire life. She worked at Ardbeg in the visitor center. She also was an Ardbeg ambassador in Sweden, and she studied under Dr. Bill and Jillian McDonald for about 6 years. And I don't know, some of you are probably part of the committee. You saw the email that came out. Apparently, she told Jillian years ago that she wanted to become a distillery manager, and dreams come true.
There you go.
So I'm really excited to have her. She's the first woman in 200 years to run Ardbeg. So we're really happy about it.
And Ardbeg's been going for quite a while too. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, first woman in 200 years. I mean, but I think sometimes we lose sight of how many women are involved in whiskey in general across the board. I mean, we just honored Rachel Barry here this last year and stuff like that. But I think the contributions that women have made to whiskey in general are probably undersung.
Right. Absolutely.
So I'm glad to see, some of that stuff sort of coming back and taking position of power. Because I always say, women have better palates than most men. Yeah. So it's a natural fit.
Yes. Apparently women have 40% more receptors on their olfactory bulb than men. So all you women out there are actually naturally better smellers and tasters than men. So keep that in mind as we're going through Ardbeg tonight.
You'll get all the peat.
Yes.
You won't miss a portion of it. So what are you up to? Because I know you're all around the country.
So I'm Northeast.
Yeah. Okay.
So Northeast, and then, helping out wherever. There's actually 5 of us ambassadors around the country. They let 5 of us run around drinking Ardbeg and Glenmorangie all day.
That's nice.
Amazing.
That's great. Well, we're glad to have you here tonight. And a couple of people questioned me about the order that we were going to do. And I was like, no, it's absolutely correct. This is the order we're going to do tonight. So it's going to pop around between ages. Don't be fooled by that. It is a natural progression. Okay. So let's start with, of course, the flagship, the workhorse.
Sure.
Of Ardbeg 10.
Sure.
The beast. Absolutely.
So, and do we want to talk about history at all of Ardbeg?
Listen, we're here. We'll listen to whatever you have to say.
Because I think it's important to understand the history of Ardbeg, to understand the significance of the tenure.
Okay.
So, Ardbeg, we're located on Isla, our island home in the Hebridean Islands. And some people pronounce it all sorts of weird ways, but it's pronounced Isla. We're founded back in 1815 by a gentleman named John McDougall. There's records that show that there was distilling going on going back to, I think, about 1798 or so. John McDougall passed away a few years later. His son Alexander took over, and when he passed away, that's when John McDougall's daughters, Margaret and Flora, took over the distillery along with a gentleman named Colin Hay. So that's kind of the tie-in there with Baroni, where they were running the distillery 200 years ago, and now we have
Right.
Baroni. And I might have her name incorrect, so forgive me for my possibly mispronouncing her name. But, they took over the distillery for a number of years, and then when they passed away, the Hay family took over the distillery. So Ardbeg had, a lot of prosperity early on. At one point in time, they were the largest producer of spirit on Isla, and blended Scotch became very popular. But as the years progressed, Ardbeg changed hands, and throughout the 40s, things like that, Ardbeg, was very popular as far as an export spirit. But as we kind of go more into the later years, going into the 70s, blended Scotch becomes out of favor. And eventually, I think with a lot of distilleries, there was a surplus of single malt Scotch, which led to what's called the whiskey lock going into the 80s itself. And at this point in time, Ardbeg is owned by Hiram Walker, and Ardbeg eventually becomes mothballed. They have to shut down operations. They're losing money. And in 1981, Ardbeg stops production. And a lot of people are, thinking, well, what's going to happen to Ardbeg itself? So from 1981 to 1989, Ardbeg was mothballed. And eventually, Ardbeg goes into the hands of Allied Domecq,
Yep.
and they then decide to sell Ardbeg, and Ardbeg is in complete disrepair. And Ardbeg goes up for sale, and a lot of distilleries or companies bid on Ardbeg, but Glenmorangie won, even though I think they were not the highest bidder. I think they bought Ardbeg for what would have been equivalent to about $7 million. Because I believe, Allied Domecq knew that Glenmorangie would really take care of it and make Ardbeg what it possibly could be. So Glenmorangie bought
There was a lot
Ardbeg.
of work to do. I
Yes.
mean, that's the other part of this. A lot of
Yeah,
people get there was a lot of work to bring it up to snuff.
absolutely. And I think they put in about, like $3 million just to bring Ardbeg,
Back online.
up to par. Absolutely. So, didn't have a lot of stock available going into 1997 when Glenmorangie bought Ardbeg. So there were some releases, and we can talk about that in a little while. But the first core release they had after Glenmorangie bought Ardbeg was the 10-year. So now that you understand the history, you understand why the 10-year was so significant, because leading into releasing the 10, they had to go through a lot to get there. So the 10 is really meant to symbolize what Ardbeg is all about. Sea salt air. It's about the people of Isla, and really represents everything Ardbeg is. So when you drink the 10, it's all about Isla and Ardbeg in a dram, basically.
Yeah, excellent.
So
So you guys want to? That's slot number one. Pick up 10 and let's give it a try. I was like, going back to the 10, and we're going to get to the wee beastie too a little bit, which is their 5-year-old. It always People always go, oh, it's really smoky. I go, yeah, but don't you get the sweetness to it too? And
right,
it's got that sweet, I like call sweet peat to it.
right.
It's that younger peated whiskey has a component to it that hasn't gone over to like that earthy sort of tone.
Mhm.
It really does sort of pop as sweet, and that's where you get a little bit of that Salinic too.
Absolutely. And I think with the, Ardbeg in general, I think what we do really well is balance that peat, that smoke, which is more to me like hickory smoke,
Hmm.
with sweetness. So Ardbeg has kind of perfected that. And I think on your first sip, that all that smoke really comes through. But, the second sip, the third sip, that's where you start getting, some of the floral notes, some of the salinity, and definitely, minerality and limestone. And that really starts to come through as you sip through the 10-year.
What's funny is a lot of people, I don't usually have people start with peated whiskey, like getting into Scotch, getting into single malts, especially. I don't really usually have them start with peated whiskey. And a lot of times, for the first time they try it, they go, "Oh no, I don't like that. I don't like that smokiness. That smokiness." I go, "Just wait,
Yes.
just wait." I mean, a lot of people, some people will never like it, but I think if you sort of drink whiskey long enough, especially single malts, you sort of end up here.
Right.
Because there's a flavor profile that it it sort of grabs you. Because after a while, some of the other things aren't as interesting, and all of a sudden that peatiness sort of like goes, "Oh, that's different." And
Right.
and I think that's where like a lot of people's journey, they they discover that they
Mhm.
actually if they didn't start liking peat, always a lot of times end up liking peat.
Right, absolutely. I think, for some people, they get Ardbeg right away. Like
Hmm.
for me, for example, I've always liked things that were, very bitter, very astringent. Back in college, if I didn't have money,
In a good way.
yes. Well, let me bring that back. Those are some descriptors.
Right.
Like I loved, Guinness in college, so I like that profile. I think, for some people, your palate changes over
Hmm.
time. So you may not like Ardbeg today, but you keep revisiting because maybe you'll like it, in a few years. And then for some people, it's something that just start revisiting like every week. And the thing about Ardbeg is that there's so many different expressions to explore that even if you're not really into peat, there's going to be an Ardbeg for you that, will be approachable in some shape or way or form.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna hit some of those today
Yeah.
too, which is great. What do you guys like? Do you like the 10? Let me ask you a question because I know the answer before I ask this, but I still will ask it anyways. Is anybody not? Is this the first time anybody has tried peated whiskey? Don't be shy. All right,
Today.
today, first time. No, that's not true. I saw you. Remember, it was pour one for the tray, pour one for me. That's Johnny over there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times, listen, you see Ardbeg listed as a tasting or an event we're going to do, and people show up,
Absolutely.
So 50
Yeah.
plus. Yeah. I mean, we looked at it. So yes,
Yeah.
congratulate yourself. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yay, you get to drink whiskey.
Ardbeg definitely has, I think, the most loyal fans,
They do.
probably out of any, I shouldn't say any brand out there, but I think very much out of most brands out there.
Yeah, no, they are staunchly loyal to the brand, which is great, I think. All right, so now we're gonna go. So I don't think everybody gets this whiskey,
Yeah.
and so I think it's important for you to sort of tell us about it. We're gonna go to the, and I probably should say this before I get on because Lisa's gonna ask me in a minute. 46, Lisa, 46 ABV on the 10 is the Ardbeg 17. Now, the Ardbeg 17 is a committee exclusive.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, Julio's Liquors is an embassy account. So we are part of the committee, and we usually get the committee releases here too. There's a couple of us in Massachusetts, but this is at 40%.
Yes.
All right. So tell us about Ardbeg 17.
Yeah. So Ardbeg 17 it's a really special whiskey. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about the history is because we need to go back to the history of Ardbeg to understand the 17 year. So, I told you about Glenmorangie buying Ardbeg in 1997, and when they did, Ardbeg barely had any stock available to release anything. So, they were producing spirit, I think, when Ali Demek owned Ardbeg back in the 80s, they were, turning the stills maybe twice a year to produce some spirit to put away. But even going back a bit further, Ardbeg started producing some, very lightly peated spirit. And I believe that went under the name Kildalton. So when Glenmorangie bought Ardbeg, some of that was still laying around as well. But they needed something to put out, right away, or they wanted to put out something, sooner than later. So what Glenmorangie decided to do, I believe they released like a 1978, but the 17 year was actually the first thing they put out. And what Glenmorangie decided to do was take some of this lightly peated whiskey that they used for Kildalton, and then they also used some of, the regular Ardbeg spirit that we all know, and they blended it together. So that was, one odd thing because most people know Ardbeg to be very, very peaty in style. However,
So started cutting it a little bit.
yes, yes. And then Glenmorangie also decided to release this at 40% ABV, unheard of for Ardbeg, and it was also chill filtered. So, they went through the process of making sure to remove like all the impurities, things like that. So when it was on the shelf, it looked pretty consistent. And this is what they released. And I believe they released this in like June of that year when they purchased Ardbeg. And it was met with, I'm guessing at the time, a lot of interest, confusion. I think it was really polarizing because it brought in, new people that didn't know Ardbeg and was really approachable because it was so light and the lower ABV. But for some of the diehard Ardbeg fans, they were probably thinking, what's going on? What is this Ardbeg? But the 17 became a cult classic, basically. So we produced this for a number of years, but there wasn't a lot of stock around. So we eventually retired this in 2004. Never to think that we would see it again. And years later, Dr. Bill and Jillian decided to re-release the 17 year. And I believe in conversations that they would have out and about, over the years, a lot of fans would bring up the 17 year and how much they liked it. So, the interesting thing about the 17 is that Dr. Bill was behind the original 17. And then, he and Jillian decided to remake this 17. And what they did was follow, the recipe for the original 17 as much as they could, even down to using, lightly peated Ardbeg, chill filtering, and being at 40% ABV. So, for those of you who are wondering why are we doing a 17 next, because of all those things, the 17 is going to be very light, very elegant in style, and for me, it's one of the most approachable Ardbegs that we've ever released.
You can also remember when they started coming out like the 78 and the 17. We talk about people going like, well, this is a different Ardbeg than I've had. There wasn't much out there at that point. So there wasn't a lot of people that really knew like the legend of Ardbeg.
Right.
But there wasn't a lot of people that had actually drunk Ardbeg.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start talking about 17 was a lot of people's first go at Ardbeg too.
Right.
So that almost set, and that's why I think it ends up legendary, because that was their first taste of Ardbeg.
Absolutely.
A lot of people's first taste of Ardbeg. So I think that lends to that sort of legend of what it does.
Yeah.
All right. So number 2. Yeah, it's definitely got the thing in it. I think the citrus really starts popping in this too. You get that little bit of smokiness too, but you get like a citrus sort of flavor also, like lemons.
Yeah,
I get lemons.
It's like lemon balm, and I get a lot of pine resin as well, and eucalyptus. But it's so soft on the palate. I think that the closest Ardbeg to this is the 25 year, if you've ever had that. And the 25 year, it just the peat is just kind of dissipated. It's so soft. It's in the background. And I think the same thing, obviously, with the 17. The peat is in the background, so you're really getting that the citrus coming through, some of the more floral notes as well.
And I think it really explodes on the finish. Like you're like at first you're like, oh wait a minute, and then all of a sudden it's like it just like the finish keeps going, and it really sort of explodes, like like that half second into you're actually swallowing it.
Right.
So I think it's one of those type of things that hits on the back palate a lot more, and you still get that lemon in the center of your tongue.
Right.
So it's definitely not. It's hard to say because it's definitely not for a lot of people Ardbeg-ish.
Right.
But it is different, and it's cohesive, which is really cool, and it's balanced.
Right. It's extremely balanced, and to your point, I think for a lot of people who love Ardbeg, this can be a bit not weird, but it's harder to get your mind around because of what you're so used to with Ardbeg. For me, this is the Ardbeg I love drinking when it's warmer out, or if I want to introduce people to Ardbeg. Not to make them think this is what all Ardbeg is about, but this is a great way to ease people into peated styles of whiskey. And I think it's a nice alternative. It's just a very easygoing Ardbeg to drink. And when we released this, I think people knew about it, but I don't think a lot of people realized that this came out in the market.
Well, some people go like, "Oh no, the ABV, this and that." I go, "Yeah, that's what the 17 was."
Right.
I mean, you got to remember they're trying to recreate that 17, and that's exactly what it was.
Right.
And so if you look at the history about it, and you got to get that part of it. You're right. You have to talk about the history because you have to understand that.
Right. Absolutely.
And plus it's a beautiful. If we didn't say this was Ardbeg 17 and just sort of blind taste, you'd be like, it's a beautiful whiskey.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be Ardbeg. It's just a beautiful whiskey.
For me, it's all about elegance and finesse when you have this 17.
What do you guys think? It doesn't matter what we think. What do you guys think? Like it? Who likes this? I'm just out of curiosity. Who likes this one? Yeah. Okay. Just curious. Yeah, it does have a silky texture. Yeah, no, it's very well balanced. We talk about extremes a lot. And in our industry is sort of based on extremes. Everybody, we talk about this a lot. Everybody wants to have the hoppiest beer. I want to get the most ppms of peat into my whiskey. even wine. I want to get the oakiest wine. Like we go to these extremes and they're sort of cool, but at the end of the day, I think most people find that you drink more of a balanced product than you do
Absolutely.
of something that's extreme.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just I think that overall, if you really look at what you drink and you look at for most people, they end up going through a bottle that's balanced more than extreme.
Right. And I think the 17 is really a testament to
Of
the
course, these
fact.
guys all have like 10 bottles on. Who has 10 bottles, at least 10 bottles open? Yeah.
I think we all
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some people go like, I got a guy who came in the other day. He goes, I got a lot of bottles open right now. I'm like, really? How many you got? He goes, three.
That's a start.
I go, cool. That's a Tuesday for some of my customers having three open. I said, when you start getting up like past 10, then we can talk because again, whiskey is very mood orientated.
Right.
We talk about this all the time. It's very mood orientated. So when you have these, they don't go bad. They really don't go bad. And you get home at night, you go like, what do I feel like drinking tonight? How am I feeling? What's the weather like? How's it cold? It's
Right.
this, it's that. And that's sort of when you choose what you're going to drink for the night.
Right. I think in this position, my favorite question I get is, what is your favorite? And I have to say, well, I don't know, depends on what time it is. It's just,
Right.
you're showing so many things and you're responsible for so many different expressions. Your favorite depends on your mood.
That's so true. I have two daughters and say which one is my favorite, and I always said it depends on the day.
Yes.
They hate that joke. Anyways, so let's move on because this was probably of the core lineup. This is the newest edition,
Yes.
right? Of the core lineup
Yes.
is the Wee Beastie, and somebody said to me, they go, "Why would you make a 5-year-old your next thing because of the 10? They must not have enough whiskey for the 10." I go, "No, that's fine. Wait until you try it.
Right.
It's something different." And the other part of this is that again in history we lose sight of track of what age are we drinking whiskeys at. We talked about the whiskey lock, right?
Right.
Whiskey lake, right? We had too much whiskey. We had all this whiskey. That's when we started drinking older stuff. Before that, there was nothing wrong with a 5, 7, 8, 9. I mean, you would see all of those numbers. You'd hit 10. 12 was the oddity.
Hmm.
12 was like, that's old. That's old whiskey. It was the 12. You drank whiskey at younger ages. So, you know, what about the Wee Beastie? What's sort of the thing on that one?
Yeah, so the Wee Beastie, to your point, that was the most recent addition to our core line. And for those of you who may not be too familiar, our core line is our 10-year, our Wee Beastie, NO, which we're going to have as well, Ugadal and Corey Vrecken. So Wee Beastie was introduced, I believe, in March of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And Wee Beastie was really our way of showing, how the intensity of Ardbeg yet still being balanced at such a young age. So, I think Dr. Bill really just wanted to show what we could do, even with a younger age statement, because, to your point, people were drinking younger age statements before, but as we've gotten more and more into, down the road here, most people are looking for that older age statement, and they may not be familiar with the fact that even younger age statements can be really well balanced.
Mm-hmm.
And at this younger age, you're really able to see Ardbeg and the spirit itself, and a bit more raw in style, yet still refined. And so that's what the Wee Beastie really shows you when you're drinking it.
It's 47.4 ABV, and I love when Dr. Bill or the team just says like I love this. It says guaranteed 5 years old. Like,
Yes.
go ahead, push me on it. Push me on it. It's guaranteed 5 years old.
Yes.
I love that fact. Like, I'm gonna double down. I
Right.
guarantee you it's at least 5 years old.
Right. So, Wee Beastie, obviously the name, means, little beast. Some people think the name might also reference the farm where Ardbeg was established, which is called Arnhem Beige, and there was a release years
One of
ago.
my favorites.
Yes,
Arnhem
as
Beige.
well.
I still have some, I think. It's coveted.
But as far as the Wee Beastie itself, the spirit that you're drinking is aged mainly in ex-bourbon cask, but about 30% of this is sitting in Oloroso sherry. So you're going to pick that up as well when we when we drink this.
Now, because we've done the first two and they've sort of jumped in intensity levels, make sure that you're trusting your second sip, not your first. It's important because you get to acclimate your mouth to this beast of a whiskey at 5.
Yes. The Wee Beastie definitely packs a punch initially.
On the nose on that, I always get like a raisiny or note on that too. I like this one. I mean, I do. There's some fun stuff you do this. I like making Bloody Marys with this.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Love doing that.
With Bloody Marys, a few years ago, I was at an event in Denver, Colorado.
Bloody Mary, Queen of Scots, they're called.
Oh, okay.
We named them Bloody Mary, Queen of Scots. So there you go.
It. No, I was at an event in Denver, and we had a director of operations for a restaurant do a Bloody Mary demonstration. And one of the expressions he was using was "wee beastie," as okay, this should be a spirit you're using in Bloody Marys. Because, when you think about Bloody Marys, vodka is a blank palate. And then you're adding all of these things into Bloody Marys, like the Worcestershire sauce and,
Which type of sauce again?
I know I can't predict this. Sorry.
No, but that's exactly no. But they're
So
you ever seen how that's made?
no.
Oh, you should see. They show you exactly how that's made. You should see that one.
Yeah. So, but with the
Tastes good though. I like it too.
yeah. But with Wee Beastie, you just have all of that there. That salinity, all that spice, and because of the Oloroso sherry, that's adding like this sweet hickory, smoke to it, toffee. So it's all there in the Wee Beastie, and just so many layers of complexity. That smoke up front, and then going into those sweeter notes because of the Oloroso sherry. And again, like as you said, first bite or first sip, very intense, but really starts to, I don't want to say soften, but really starts to expand, and you really start to understand what you're drinking with the Wee Beastie.
We talk you use vodka in a mixed drink when you want to add alcohol and not taste. It is an alcohol delivery system. If you want to add depth or anything like that, you start using other things.
Right.
Right. So this is one of those type of things that you can pump up a Bloody Mary without adding any other ingredient, except substituting that. Another one I like too is aquavit. It's got caraway seed. So that's another one I use. I very rarely use vodka. Right. Somebody usually has to ask me, "Oh, can you just make me a regular Bloody Mary?" Sure. All right, sure, no problem. But the other stuff is there and it's really good.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think of the Wee Beastie? That's delicious. This is just so good. And it's a little bit higher ABV on this too, which is nice.
This is at 47.4. Oh. Interesting.
John likes to mix whiskeys up and uses this to pump up the volume. A bland bourbon. All right.
Yeah, one of the things that the ambassador team likes to do, and I know for some people this might go against your regular thought, but we love Wee Beastie in daiquiris.
Ever try a mojito?
That would be amazing. Ardbeg plays if you want to explore cocktails, Ardbeg plays really well with anything that is citrus based. So, mojitos, daiquiris, anything along those lines. You might be thinking, well, Ardbeg, I'm never gonna use that in a cocktail. Just go home and try it. So, Ardbeg daiquiri, it's just your regular Hemingway daiquiri. It just adds that nice smoke to it, and then that lime just comes right through. So it's something else to think about when you pick up a bottle of Wee Beastie tonight.
A lot of times we have oysters, we use Wee Beastie, but now that I had that 17, I'm thinking that 17 to use when you have raw oysters.
That would be
drop in there. And since we're in New England and we're getting to the end of the summer, but the lobsters are still plentiful, in your lobster water or steam bath, add that in. Because it gets into everything. It's really good, and it really plays well with the taste of lobster.
Ooh, something else to try.
There you go. Cooking with whiskey.
Yes.
There you go. All right, everybody, listen. This was one of those things that I loved when Wee Beastie came out because everybody went, "Oh, really? A 5-year-old?
Right.
This is going to be terrible. Why? And then they tried it and were like, "Damn, that's good. That's really good." and it sort of turned a lot of people's heads, which I
Right.
thought was important.
Yeah, and Wee Beastie ended up winning, best whiskey of the
Yeah.
year, I think under 10 years. So, and we did that in 2020 and 2023 as well.
All right. All right. So the next one we have is I
This,
can't read
I
it.
think this
The,
might
yeah,
be
this you
the
gotta grab it.
no.
I
Yeah,
know.
the no.
You know.
Yeah,
You know. I know.
Yeah, I know.
You know. You know. All right. You guys never saw the commercial about Megan's. And okay, so tell us a little bit about it. And no,
Sure. So,
besides the name, that's really
right.
wacky.
So the first thing to know about Uno
You
is the
know.
name itself. And people will pronounce it all sorts of interesting ways. They'll pronounce it Enoa, things like that, but it's pronounced Eno. And Eno is named after an area on Isla called the Mull of O. So the Mull of O kind of juts out the very bottom of Isla. And so where Ardbeg sits, and Ardbeg means, the word itself means small promontory. So Ardbeg kind of like juts out into the water a little bit. And the very tip of where Ardbeg is, that's the Mull of O. And the Mull of O is it's thought to be this place where, it's kind of rounded if look at it from an aerial view, very rounded, but, definitely if you go there, it's, rough and rugged
Right.
and the water is flashing up. So just like the Mull of O is, rounded but a bit rough around the edges, that's how we think of Eno itself. And for me, Eno is, the softer side of Ardbeg. And, with Eno, it's three different components that we're using for it. So Eno was actually introduced, I believe, in 2017 into the core line. And what we wanted to do was make something that, was a bit softer in style, and a bit more approachable. So with Eno, we're using three different types of cask. So, the first type of cask we're using is ex-bourbon cask, and, that's what we use with everything. The next type of cask we're using is Pedro Jimenez. And Pedro Jimenez, as you know, fortified a dessert style of wine coming out of Jerez. And when you put spirit into Pedro Jimenez, especially spirit that's peated, it kind of subdues the peat a little bit, and it really softens it up. But the other cask we're using is virgin charred oak. And so with virgin charred oak, you put a peated spirit into that, and virgin charred oak really kind of accentuates, the peat and the vanilla notes and some of those bigger notes that you're going to get. So we're aging everything separately. And then after it's aged for a few years, and it's a non-age statement, so we don't know the exact time of aging. Everything is brought together in a marrying vat at the distillery. And so those components are left in the marrying vat for, I believe, a minimum of 3 months. So I guess
Really sort of married together.
right,
The
right,
flavors.
absolutely. So that
A
is
batting, so to speak.
yes, yes. So, in our sister distillery, they're known for finishing Ardbeg, we're vatting, things like that. So this, I think, but I'm not sure if it's French oak vat that we're using. But yeah, we do a vatting process for the Eno.
Yeah, but that's fairly that is fairly neutral,
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
I mean, it's not really imparting really any more flavors in
Right.
there. It's just letting what's in there sort of sit together and sort of like mingle around.
Right, exactly.
So it all becomes one and harmonious.
Right. So I think it's left in there for about 3 to 4 months, depending on when they decide to go ahead and bottle it.
It's all, but really a lot of the stuff is done by taste anyways. I mean,
Yes.
that's why that's the other part of why there's no age statement, because if I have to use this or that to get it to taste the way I want it to,
Right.
I want to have the freedom to do so.
Absolutely.
Everybody thinks it's always, when you don't put an age statement, it's always some weird way of getting around, putting younger whiskeys in things. Yeah, if younger whiskey fits, it's going in there.
Right. Yeah.
And if something old fits, it's going in there.
Right. It's not always, it's really not about like hiding a younger age statement.
Right.
When you have, spirit sitting in different casks and you're trying to get an exact flavor profile year after year.
Right.
Sometimes those casks are going to change. Some casks are affected by, are they in a warehouse that's closer to the water or further away? So our whiskey creation team.
Just wood itself. I mean, every barrels vary from barrel to barrel.
Right. Right.
So even that can throw things off.
Right. And, I'm sure some of you have been to Ardbeg, but our whiskey creation team, and we had a chance to go visit them in the lab, and they're sitting there. They're in white, coats. There's vials and labels everywhere. They're literally tasting through, these casks over and over again, so they can determine, when to release something, how to mix things. So it really is an art as far as how
they only wear the white coats so people don't think they have, they drink too much. It's like this is our job. See the coat.
Right.
Just so you guys know, it is non-chill filtered and it is 46.6. All right. Try that. See what you guys think of that.
Yeah, and definitely, take a look at the color. It's just such a beautiful, amber color. And that's really coming
That's coming from the sherry.
Yeah, the Pedro Menez.
You smell it on the nose too.
Yeah.
I like this one a lot when we first started with that one. I just think it's got some. This one sort of change for me on this one a lot. It changes as I drink it, and I usually say it's a thinking person's whiskey because there's a lot more that you sort of discover as you sort of get into the glass.
Right.
Right.
For me, this is my sipping Ardbeg. This is if I want to just, sit down, enjoy Ardbeg. I want something that's really approachable. This is a great Ardbeg to introduce people into Ardbeg and introduce people to peated styles of whiskey in general. That marrying of Pedro Menez and virgin charred oak cask, it really helps to subdue the peat. So it's just a very approachable style of Ardbeg.
I think it almost changes. I think it's almost you get to that point where it's almost like barbecue.
Yeah.
That, sweet and smoky.
Absolutely.
You sort of get some of that sort of feel to it, or like, I want to say I don't want to say bacon, but I want to say like ham, Canadian bacon.
Yeah, I mean, with this one, it's like,
as they say, is it stripy bacon? Is that what it is? That the other one?
Yeah, definitely, that bacon, meatier notes.
Yeah.
This pairs amazing with chocolate or, charcuterie as we're bringing up as well. So, for me, this is an absolutely beautiful Ardbeg, and a great one if you just want something to, relax and sit with, and share with someone.
Is anybody, I'm just out of curiosity, is this their first time trying? I know. Yeah, it's okay. We don't take you out back or anything like that. Yeah, you can. It's all right. Because I'm curious because it's been around a while for long, and I think it's one of those whiskeys that not every Ardbeg sort of aficionado has sort of jumped at trying, and then once they try, they go, "Oh man, that's really good. I like that."
Right. We find a lot of people have not tried and know for whatever reason, and once people do, they realize there's something they're missing. Yeah, exactly.
I like that one. That's a great. And by the way, I keep saying I like that one, but it really is. We talked about earlier is about what I'm in the mood for.
Right.
So I can like all of them and still be in the mood for whatever sort of suits me.
Right.
And it sort of gives us that range of flavors to do so.
Absolutely.
All within the range of peat.
Yes.
Everybody thinks peat's all the same. It's peat. It's peaty.
So
yeah.
Peat,
okay.
Peat it's very different. So Ardbeg sources their peat from Castle Hill. From Castle Hill, it's about 3 miles north of the distillery. So, peat's found, everywhere. I think, in 180 countries around the world, but, the UK is one of the top countries for peat cover, and then Scotland definitely has the most peat cover in the UK itself. And, with Ardbeg, we actually have the highest level of phenolic content overall from any peated whiskey out there. So we peat our barley to between 55 and 65 peat parts per million. Try saying that a few times after a few drams. So, there's definitely more. There's definitely higher peated scotches out there, like, your Octomores, things like that. But those are one-off productions, whereas Ardbeg, everything that we do is peated to 55 to 65 peat parts per million. So for a lot of people, when they taste through Ardbeg, they might say, oh, this one is peatier than that one, and vice versa. We peat everything the same. So the differences you're tasting is, the age, because when you do that peating process, once that, material leaves, leaves, the maltsters, you start losing that phenolic content, and then it depends on the cask you're putting the spirit in, and the way, whether or not they're doing marrying, things like that. So a lot of things
It's even the
affect.
cuts too, though.
Yeah.
Because the cuts are going to make a difference too. Because even if you start with, let's say, 50 ppm, you're going to lose
Right.
through the distillation process. You lose a lot of that, anyways.
Absolutely.
So if you're depending on where you're making your cuts of your heads and your tails is also going to determine how much of that peatiness carries through.
Right.
So even though you're starting with the same, there's another art. It's the art of distillation,
Right.
right? And then there's the art of blending,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's all, and that's what the distillery. By the way, that's Brony's new job. That's what the distillery manager is doing, is making those consistent things that they want to have, wherever that may be.
Right.
Right. I'm sure they're probably not all the same all the way down the line.
Right. So yeah, there's definitely some variation with that.
All right. Next one I think is really cool because it's the unicorn.
Yes.
And who doesn't like a unicorn?
So yeah, so the unicorn's tail, it's a really interesting release for Ardbeg, and this is part of a series called Anthology. So it's a three-part series, and the first release was last year. And Anthology is our way of explaining, first of all, as far as the story behind it, explaining, seeing, lesser cited mythical animals around Isla. But for us, we're really trying to show how we're using certain casks we've never really experimented with before at Ardbeg, more specifically, certain types of dessert wine cask. So the first release last year was Harpy's Tale, and that was a 13-year. There's a fun story behind it. One night the distillery workers were out, and one of them could swear that they saw a harpy, which is, a half person, half mythical creature that, in mythology was, sent out to do the bidding of Zeus at the time. So that was a fun story behind it. But the spirit itself was the first time that Ardbeg experimented with Sauterne cask. So with the 14-year being the next release, this is our first time experimenting with Madeira cask. Now, as far as the story behind the unicorn, another thing a lot of people don't realize is that the unicorn is the national animal of Scotland, which is something I didn't know. So that's kind of where they were going with that. But apparently one night the distillery workers could have swear that they saw what seemed like a unicorn, roaming out and about the distillery. So that's where they came up with the unicorn's tail, because no one's really sure if they ever saw the unicorn, but the distillery.
I think they've been taking some, been doing some walking the dog,
right.
Something.
Right, absolutely.
Seeing all these types of things. This one is done. It is Madeira, and of course the classic ex-bourbon cask. This is 46% alcohol by volume. Again, non-chill filtered on this one, guys.
Right.
All right.
So, this one as well, it's just looking at the color, you have that really deep amber color, and that's coming from the Madeira cask. So, and on the nose, you're getting.
Has anybody ever just had Madeira? Just out of curiosity. Okay.
Yeah, and I believe
you guys got to start drinking a lot more fortified wines, because we need casks to use.
Yeah.
You drink more sherry, you can drink more Madeira, right?
Right. And I believe the
Sauternes.
Yeah, and with the anthology series, the Harpy's Tale is also amazing. But with this one, the Madeira casks we're using, I believe, it is Malmsey Madeira, which is a sweeter style of Madeira. And one of the things to know about Dr. Bill, our master distiller, he's an amazing master distiller, 5-time master distiller of the world, named through international whiskey competition. He's been with us for about 30 years. He's also a huge wine fan. So over the years, he's created all these amazing relationships with producers. We're able to source all, so many interesting casks. And because of his love of wine, we really experiment with a lot of interesting casks that you may not see other distilleries work with.
Thank goodness, because this is delicious.
Yes, yes.
Has anybody had this before? Oh, who hasn't had this one before? I'm going to get you sooner. Like, wow, almost everybody. So this is brand new. What do you guys think? I love this one. I think this is so good.
Yeah, and
it's so different. And now you start getting that peatiness actually becomes it's more earthy that sweetness sort of takes over just a little bit.
Right.
But you get more an earthy quality at 14 than you would at 10.
Yes.
You know, it's not so much that sweet peat anymore. It's changed. It's almost a savory note.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
so I think that's really
start
good.
getting like tobacco
Yeah.
and forest floor, but that sweetness is still coming through, and from the Madeira. But this is for me. This is also another great Ardbeg that's perfect for sipping. Also a really great Ardbeg for sharing with other people who are coming into peated styles of whiskey, because it is a bit softer in style just from that Madeira cask, especially with Malmsey Madeira. That that sweetness coming from Malmsey is really tempering the peat.
This is a limited series. I think I like this better than the Harpy.
And the Harpy, yeah.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is really good. I like this one a lot.
And it's interesting because if you do get
And I like
the
Sauternes.
yes, I
So
love sauternes, and so it's a fun expression from Ardbeg. If you get this and you get the harpy's tail as well, they're fun to kind of compare.
yeah,
How we're using dessert style cask at Ardbeg, because it's not something that we usually or really have experimented with over the years.
yeah, I like that one. That's delicious.
Yeah.
All right. So now we come. This is the last of the next one, the Smoky Verse. Now this was just recently released.
Yes.
So
Smoky Verse is a really interesting.
you're gonna have to hand me the box because I
Yes.
can't reach way over there.
Oh, yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Smokyverse was an interesting release. This was our Ardbeg Day release for this year, for 2025. And Smokyverse also commemorated the 25-year anniversary of the Ardbeg Committee. And should I talk a bit about the Ardbeg
Sure,
Committee?
why not?
And so, the Ardbeg Committee goes back to 2000. And if you remember the history I was telling you about with Ardbeg almost, disappearing when Glenmorangie got Ardbeg up and running again, and we released a 10-year. Fans of Ardbeg came together and said we never want to see Ardbeg go out of existence. So the Ardbeg Committee was created. So out of a few people back in 2000, the Ardbeg Committee has grown to, I think at this point we're close to about 200,000 people. I hear differing numbers, but it's a large
It's a
amount of
lot.
people.
Yeah.
And
It's still not all the drinkers out there of Ardbeg.
no, yeah, exactly. And it's joining the committee, you go online and you join and you get emails about all of the latest and greatest about Ardbeg, and you find out about some of our committee releases, before anyone else does. Or you might get invited to, interesting things. For example, one of our other releases, Eureka, we actually took a group of committee members and had them come and help us pick out the final batch they used to make Eureka, which was a committee release from last year. So, the committee members are very important to Ardbeg. It's kind of part of the heart and soul of what Ardbeg does, because people are so loyal to Ardbeg. So, every year we do an Ardbeg Day release that is a committee release, basically. So the committee members find out about the release first.
It's usually done at a different ABV. It's like there's some that only come out for committee release, and then there's
Right.
other ones that there will be a general release, but it's a different ABV
Right.
than the committee release one. And and we're an embassy store, and what that sort of means is that, if something comes to the States and it comes to especially to Massachusetts, we get some of it. Now we don't get all of it, but we get some of it. So everything comes here to any embassy store. So like I said, we don't get all of it. It gets dished out, but we always get some.
Right.
So
And with the Ardbeg Day releases, we had been doing it in different ways over the years, but right now with our Ardbeg Day release, we're just doing, one release for it. And the ABV for this one, I believe, is about 48%.
This one is 48.3.
Right. So
we're
we've had
0.3 off again.
Yes.
Non-chill filter.
Very, very close. So, with Ardbeg Day, there's always a theme. Has anyone been to Ardbeg for the Feish, the big festival we do?
Pesau.
Yes.
Anybody been? Just curious.
So if you're a fan
We've
of
done some
Ardbeg-
celebrating here. We've had some pretty good celebrations here.
Yeah. So they
For
celebrate it.
Ardbeg Day.
Yeah, they celebrate there, and then places like you, because you're Ardbeg embassy member. So we have a big festival, and every Ardbeg Day release has a different theme. And usually people dress up around the theme. We make cocktails kind of centered around the theme. And, the way that we make the specific release is also focusing on the theme. So for this Ardbeg release, it's called Smokyverse, and the theme was a bit of a space theme. So if you look at the box, there's like it's really like a mash, it's supposed to be like a mash tun, and everything is kind of
the black hole.
So
right?
the black
I don't
hole,
think it was a black.
it's supposed to be a mash tun, but yeah, so black
No,
hole.
no, but the black hole, the mash tun is the black hole.
Right, exactly.
Everything goes into.
And everything kind of goes into it. And
high gravity experiment, which makes sense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a space theme this year, and the theme for Smokyverse is high gravity. So this is our first time experimenting with high gravity, and basically we're taking this this concept from the beer world. So basically, when you're doing your production process and you have barley and you dry it and then you put it. So at Ardbeg we have something called a bobby mill. We've had it there since I think 1921. It's been in use all these years. I think the same family servicing it. So we take the barley, we put it in the bobby mill. We turn the barley into grist. And then it goes into the mash tun. And, with the mash tun, you add water, and that's where you take the, grist and convert it into wort, so you can eventually put it into the fermentation. So with high gravity or gravity itself, when you're making beer, basically, with wort, the more dense wort is, the higher the gravity. So in beer making terms, denser wort or higher gravity produces more sugar, if that makes sense. So almost think of it as, cooking sauce. If you have less,
it's like a reduction.
Yeah, if you have less water in that sauce, the sauce is a bit more intense. So the same idea. So basically with high gravity, and then the way that we made the high gravity, we took the wort and reduced the amount of water that we would usually use, therefore creating a denser wort and a higher gravity. And basically you measure that intensity or that sugar by the word gravity, if you will. So by doing this process, what you do is raise the amount of acetate esters, and acetate esters is what gives you, this fruitiness.
Flavor,
Right.
especially fruit.
So it gives, basically, before we went into the fermentation process, it increased those fruit flavors. And that is basically what is the basis of high density or high gravity itself. So
more importantly, how do you guys like it?
Yeah.
It's really good.
So this was a fun one for us to make. So, on the nose, it's very tropical.
Yeah.
It's almost like bubble gum or, muscovado sugar on the nose, and it just kind of follows along on the palate as well.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And the finish actually goes even sweeter.
Yes.
Which is cool. I like it. All right, I'm just going to grab this since I'm already up and over here.
Yeah. And if you're to look up all the different celebrations this past year for Ardbeg Day, you'll find, people in different parts of the world like dressed up in astronaut costumes. So in New York, we had a big event there. I'm in an astronaut costume in a blue wig. You might see some pictures online.
You're warning us, aren't you?
Yes. If you decide to look up high gravity.
All right. So, well, we come to the end of the road, but I think it might have been worth the wait. You got the 19-year-old, and this one is the batch 6.
Yes.
So this is the latest batch that's out. We're about to get 7 soon, right?
So 7, you get 7, you'll probably need to go overseas for that.
Oh, okay.
But
That's they're not shipping all those.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So this is batch number 6.
Right.
Of the 19-year-old. And I'm not going to say that, you say it.
Oh, so it's on the box it says Trayvon.
Trayvon.
So, the 19-year was the first permanent age-stated Ardbeg that was added to our core line after the 10. So it was the 10-year, then the 19-year was released in 2019. And then the Wee BC was released in 2020. So the way that Trayvon is released is basically in batches. We only make it once a year. As far as the name itself, Trayvon means singing sands. and it's named after a beach on Isla, very close to Ardbeg. And if you were to go there and you can go online and see pictures, it's an absolutely, beautiful beach, beautiful sand, nice water. And there's actually like palm trees and things like that around
People
there.
don't realize it's a temperate climate.
It's a very temperate climate, and the interesting thing about Isla is that it's actually positioned where it's hit by the Gulf Stream. So it's a very temperate climate. You do have palm trees there, not necessarily palm tree weather. So you don't want to, I don't think you're putting on your bathing suit at the beach, but it's just an absolutely beautiful place to go. So that's where the name comes from. But there's a lot of different things going on with the 19. So this is something where on the label itself, there's a lot of information. So as you can see, the bottle looks a bit different from other Ardbegs, and then there's this batch label down here, and it changes from batch to batch. So the first thing on the label you'll see is TB, which stands for Trayvon, and then for this particular release, you'll see the number 6, so it means release 6, and then you'll see a date on the label, and the date is the date that the youngest spirit was bottled. So, this is, I think, let's see here, April 2005. And then the next number you'll see on here is 24. So this was eventually bottled in 2024. And then the last bit of information on that label are initials. So for this release, the initials are DB, and that stands for Duggar Brown. And Duggar Brown is a distillery worker at Ardbeg that's been with the distillery for a number of years. So the way that Trayvon works is that it's always going to be a proportion of mainly ex-bourbon cask and a small proportion of Oloroso sherry. And it changes from batch release to batch release. But someone at the distillery gets to pick, which batch that we're eventually going to go with for the release. And then we put their initials on the label.
So we know who to give praise to or who to blame.
Yes.
Mostly praise, though.
Yes. So, but the interesting thing is, if you were to taste all of the different 19s side by side, it's kind of like a vertical. It's interesting to see how it changes from batch to batch, even though we're not changing too much, just slight variations on the amount of ex-bourbon cask to sherry as far as the ratios. So, I know you carry a few of the 19s here. Batch
we have a
one,
number 3. I think we still have some 3 left.
Okay, so batch 3, when you look at the label, it's going to say WL for William Lumsden. So that was Dr. Bill's pick. Batch 1, just kind of give you an idea, it's people who have been very significant at the distillery as far as their contributions. So batch 1 was Mickey Heads, who was now 2 distillery managers ago, former distillery manager. Batch 2 was Jackie Thompson. Yep. Batch 3 was Dr. Bill. Batch 4 was Colin Gordon, who was our previous distillery manager. Batch 5 was Jillian McDonald, who is our master blender, and now batch 6, Duggar Brown. And so if you were to taste Jillian's release versus Duggar Brown's release, Jillian's release actually has more tropical notes, which is interesting. Whereas for me, batch 6 is more eucalyptus, more mint, a bit more like the palate's a bit oilier in style. So it's
a little heavier.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, what did you think of batch 6? Good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's amazing like how you can see like, the ages on these and what it does. I just think the most interesting thing for me is what it does to the peat and how it is presented at these different ages. I mean, listen, the NO is all about the blending, and the barrel finishes, and even the 14 is that way. But it's one of those type of things when you see the age statements and pop up and down, you really want to. I sort of, especially with like Ardbeg and some of the Isla whiskeys, I love seeing where the peat lands,
right?
Because it does change so much,
right. And the amazing thing about this entire lineup is that we went, at such a young age statement with the 5, and now we're up to the 19. And everything is still so well balanced, despite no matter what the age statement is, and that really is a testament to our whiskey creation team and the distillery team and how they're able to keep that balance throughout everything that we make.
I think absolutely, I love this. I want to. Oh yes, sir. You have a question? I'll repeat the question too. So you get okay. So as wine has vintages, and there's variation between basically harvests in between, and the winemaking that year is did you have the sort of the same variations that you will have from batch to batch? Is that good? Yeah, I have to say it so they can hear it on Facebook, anyways. But and the answer is yes, because of who they're putting bunches of batches together. One person's responsible for choosing which batch they go with, but they're experimenting with percentages in the particular batches. Does that make sense? So it's in a way it's not a natural progression like the vintage would be of grapes.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of stylistic difference, and the barrels are still changing. No two barrels are alike. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen that way. We've had things here that have been stored same distillation, same wood run, same barrel run in the same rick house side by side, and they couldn't have been more different. And so there's lots of things you can control, and there's plenty in whiskey that you can't. So, but what you are controlling is the blending. So when you're making batches, you are controlling that. So you're forcibly making different flavor components, and then it's also going to vary on which one gets actually chosen for the final batch. Did I explain that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, miss. That's right.
Right.
That's right. They're making samples basically,
Right.
and then deciding which way they're going to go, and then they'll basically the batch that they decide
Right.
to go with.
So
It's all about percentages. It's just a percentage thing, and just basically scales up. Yep, they'll make I think they make three or four. So they make like three or four. Like how many are there to choose from when they start going through which batch they're going to use?
that I don't know, like how many
Well, it's like say it's
different.
like 4 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's probably not like 100. I mean,
No,
it's
no, so
no,
it's not.
no. They'll make they'll make seven. Let's just use the number seven. All right. They'll make seven different ratios. They'll blend them up in like bottles. Okay. And then they choose one that will go forward and be that year's release.
Right. So they're pulling samples basically.
Right. Three is a couple of years ago.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
there's 7
Stick.
releases
Yeah.
basically, and from each release, there, as Ryan is saying, testing and pulling samples and things like that, and I'm not sure how many, but probably like, a good amount, and then they're deciding out of those
Which
samples they're
one?
testing which one they're going to release.
Yeah, it's like going with anything else. You're letting somebody you make the batch, you make them up, and just all you're doing is samples. And well, we're gonna get to that. Just hold on. We're gonna get there. John's tried all four. Yeah. There's a specific DNA. There's a specific DNA, but they do change from batch to batch.
Right.
Because it's also the person that's picking it, by the way. Yeah. Yeah. Right. There's a personality in there, definitely.
Right.
Right.
Right. And actually on the box, it gives you a bit of a description of the flavors you'll get out of it. So if you look at, batch 6 versus batch 3, it'll actually
The
give you an
different
idea
notes.
of the different notes. So you'll have a better idea of what you're choosing.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Well, first of all, I want to thank you for coming here tonight.
Oh, no, thank you so
Thank
much.
you for bringing some whiskey for us to try.
Thank you.
You bring this much whiskey, you're welcome back anytime you want. Anytime you want. All right, we're gonna say goodbye to the people. You can always get It's the Liquor Talking. We're podcast wherever you get it. We're also on Facebook, and this is recorded on Facebook now, and it also goes to YouTube. So there's plenty of ways to see this in case you're having trouble sleeping at night. It's always good to go in. But I'm going to tell you right now, this was great, and I hope you enjoyed it online. But you should have been here because it was awesome. All right, let's get that. Let's get that off. Let's make sure. Oh, they're gone. No, they're not gone yet. Hold on. All right, let me get off Facebook here. All right, and we get some stuff we need to go through here. So let's get us off Facebook now. It won't go off.